Let's open the wardrobe of the 1830s, a time when fashion began to quiet down and speak the language of emotion. The bold and dramatic shapes of the romantic 1820s didn't disappear, but they softened. Like the light of day fading into evening, women's clothing turned inward. It moved away from bold statements and began to express gentle beauty. This was the Sentimental Era, where fashion didn't need to shout. It simply suggested, whispered, and felt. By 1831, you could still feel the influence of Romanticism, but something was different. The woman who once dressed like a character from a dramatic novel now began to reflect another ideal: gentle, graceful, spiritual, and quietly emotional. This change reflected the world around her. When Queen Victoria quietly took the throne in 1837, she brought with her a new moral tone, a deeper appreciation for family, home, and modesty. And just like that, fashion followed. Clothes no longer tried to make a grand entrance. They became a way to reveal the heart and spirit within. At the start of the 1830s, women still wore the dramatic shapes from the Romantic era: high, tight waists and wide, bold shoulders with large sleeves. But as the years went on, their shape changed. The waistline slowly moved to a more natural place, then a bit lower. Bodices became longer and more pointed, pulling the eye gently down. Skirt flowed softly to the ground, not with puffed up volume, but with quiet fullness. The famous gigot sleeves, those large puffed sleeves, began to slim down. By 1838, they had slopped gently off the shoulder and were often cut in one piece with the bodices, creating what was known as the coat sleeve. This new look wasn't loud or attention grabbing, it was soft and inviting. Colors followed this change in mood. The bright, bold jewel tones of the 1820s faded away. In their place came soft pinks, dusty purples, warm browns, grays, and pale blues that looked like morning mist. Patterns also became more delicate: tiny flowers, soft wines, and simple botanical prints. These weren't just pretty, they meant something. They reflected memories, emotions, and the quiet beauty of everyday life. For daytime, women wore light fabrics like muslin, organdy, or printed cotton. In the evening, they added layers of silk, gauze, or tulle over satin. These materials didn't shine across a ballroom. They caught the flicker of candlelight, glowing softly near the heart. Clothing decorations, once bold and dramatic, became delicate and quiet. Pleats, piping, and narrow ruffles replaced the heavier trims of the previous decade. One beautiful detail was the Bertha collar, a wide lace or embroidered band that gently rested on the shoulders and framed the collarbone. Bodices often had folded fabric, pointed waists, and thin ribbon belts, sometimes finished with small bits of embroidery. This era wasn't about hiding the body, it was about showing beauty in a calm and elegant way. If you look at how sleeves changed in the 1830s, you will understand the feeling of the whole decade. The large giggled sleeves from the early years, huge at the top, tight at the wrist, slowly disappeared. By 1837, evening dresses had soft, narrow sleeves made from sheer net or gauze, often decorated with lace. Day dresses had sleeves that sloped gently from the shoulder, flowing in a natural, graceful line. Sleeves no longer tried to take up space. They became a frame, something that showed how soft and thoughtful this new image of femininity had become. Even hats and hair reflected the softer move of the 1830s. Bonnets became smaller, more rounded, and were shaped to gently frame the face. Big, dramatic brims were replaced by soft edges trimmed with lace, ribbon, or small silk flowers. Hairstyles changed too. Women now parted their hair down the center, smoothed it over their ears, and tied it into low buns or twisted braids. Curls near the temples remained, but they were looser, gentler, like a romantic brushstroke on a portrait. Jewelry in the 1830s was full of feeling. It wasn't worn just for beauty, it carried meaning. Women wore lockets with a loved one's hair inside. Mourning brooches were made of black enamel or jet and decorated with tiny flowers like forget-me-nots. Rings and pins often had little messages, symbols of love, or hands gently holding each other. Even snake designs, once thought strange, became symbols of loyalty and eternal love. Coral beads, cameos, and seed pearls stayed in fashion, but they were worn not to shine, but to remember. Jewelry in this time was like a love letter in a metal or stone. As dresses changed shape, so did outerwear. Women still wore Pelisse coats in the early years, but these gave way to simpler and more graceful cloaks called mantles. They were full, flowing, and perfect for layering over the new, softer shapes. Shawls became more important than ever, especially those with paisley patterns or delicate stitching. But these weren't just to keep warm. They were like soft blankets of memory and meaning wrapped around the shoulders with care. By now, skirts were long and covered most of the legs, but that didn't mean shoes were forgotten. Silk slippers with small bows, neat ankle boots with side buttons or elastic, and even embroidered stockings still mattered. They weren't seen by many, but they were chosen carefully. A private kind of beauty, a secret only the wearer held. Fashion had become personal. So, what did this all mean? The clothes of the 1830s told a new story. The romantic women of the 1820s wore her feelings for the world to see, on her sleeves, in her giant skirts, in every bold color. But the sentimental woman of the 1830s held her emotions closer. You could see them in the lace at her collar, in the color of her dress, in the way she wore her hair. This decade reminds us to look closer, to see the poetry in the smallest details: a soft ribbon, a gentle fold, a lowered gaze. It teaches us that true beauty doesn't need to shout. Sometimes it lives in the quietest, most meaningful places. In the next chapter, we will step into the 1840s, the early years of Queen Victoria's reign, where fashion becomes more structured, more elegant, and begins to reflect a stronger sense of empire and formality. But even as it changes, the softness of the sentimental era will linger, reminding us that fashion isn't just what we wear, it's how we feel and who we are inside. Stay with me.